Okay, so we're talking about Kabbalah, and a bunch of you are in the Kabbalah class, and so you guys know how crazy and abstract this can get, and even Reese, who kind of requested this topic, said that the reason she wanted a simple presentation of it was due to the fact that it gets so complex and abstract. And so I was talking with Hal last night, and a friend of mine is teaching another, not Kabbalah, she's teaching astrology, but a very abstract type of astrology. And I was talking to Hal and saying the problem when you're talking about these really abstract things, the problem with an introduction to it is that you have to set all the rules. And it's like a really complicated game. And like, I don't know, what are the ones that they say? Oh, well, chess, but I was thinking Go. Like, I remember somebody trying to teach me Go once. They're like, it's such a good game. It's so fun. And I'm just like, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand. There's so many rules. Or maybe that one was easy. I'm not very good at games. So even maybe if that was a really easy game, I still had trouble with it. but any kind of game that you can think of that has a lot of rules. And what's the first thing you do when you learn a game is you have to go over all the rules. And some people have the right, usually it's a group of people when you're playing a game, and one person at least has the right like type of mind to be able to read a long list of like very abstract theoretical points and process that, understand how to apply it, and then explain it to the rest of the group, or possibly even have the experience of having played it before. But even if it's a new game, there's usually that one person that kind of gets it. And so whenever you're teaching an introduction to something, the first thing you have to do is roll out all the rules, and you lose everybody because there's a lot of people that they don't get the rule part. And it happened to my friend. She did a really good job introducing all of the rules in a really orderly manner and with some good examples. But she was losing people because it's like, now that we know the rules, we can go play with it, but we didn't get to play the game while in the 2-hour presentation, hour and a half presentation or whatever. And Kabbalah is the same way. And so it's this balance between, do I teach you all of the rules up front and then assume that you'll go and play it on your own, or do I introduce some of the rules, set you loose playing with those, and then later on say, oh, whoops, that's one of the rules, we're going to do it this way instead, or you missed a whole level of something because you didn't know about this rule. And so and it's just one of the give and takes of learning this kind of stuff. And so I'm going to try not to. A presentation I first did like in 2008. I'm going to try not, I've modified it quite a bit since then. And I'm going to try not to just lay out all the rules, which is what I originally had done. And I'm going to try to like get us started playing the game. And then as we go, try to like say, okay, now here's one of the rules for the game, and kind of introduce it that way. So fingers crossed, we're going to try this and see if it works. Okay, so here is Kindergarten Kabbalah by me, as proposed by Reese, and hopefully we are able to have fun with this and have a fun game today. So, introduction. The power of what? And if you're interested in tarot, a lot of people that are interested in the more esoteric branches of tarot subscribe to Paul Foster Case's BOTA correspondence course. And it's been around that long. It's still via mail, it's still printouts, it's done the way it was done long before computers were invented. And if you get those correspondence courses, the day one of week one, the first page one of the handout, at the very bottom of that page one, it says in big letters in the center of the page, what do you want? And my boyfriend Hal, I never did subscribe to those. I just bought Paul Foster Case's books, but my boyfriend Hal had subscribed to that, and he said he got to the bottom of page one on week one of day one, and he was just like, what do I want? I have no idea. And he stopped. He picked it up again, and he got through a lot of it. But what do you want? And that's kind of a hard question to answer. And so, and obviously it needs certain context, but we're gonna give the context of a little bit bigger picture, kind of like big picture, where you're going in life, what do you want out of life? Sometimes in order to get to the big picture, what you really need is something very immediate. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's very abstract. You have a feeling about it, but you don't really know what it is or how to get there or how to define it. So the very first question we ask here is, what do you want? And I did a little bit of a kind of vision board type of thing here. Just, I was trying to focus on what I thought people in general would want, travel, family, adventure, relaxation, health, relationship, things like that. And so those are some of the things that I thought might be popular in terms of what you would want. So I invite you to actually think about this for real right now. Even grab a piece of paper and start to write some things down. And I would say right now, I'll give you a couple minutes to do this, but I would say just brainstorm and write down big things, little things, whether it's like, I want something to put all my tarot decks in. I wanted that for a while. I would write that down. But I also have like big goals too. And so just write down everything you can think of. Grab a piece of paper and just start jotting all your ideas down. And I will sit here quietly while you do that. Okay. And of course, did you remember to include the intangibles? Health, happiness, love, sense of purpose, deep connection, inner peace. And if you didn't, it's really easy to get started because the easiest thing to start with is the practical items. So if some of the deeper things, and these are just examples, but if some of the deeper things didn't get into the list before, go ahead and add them now. You really can put anything on this list. And if you did all like big picture, intangible, I want peace in the world, that kind of stuff, that's awesome too. Go back and feel free to add a few practical things just for yourself too. So I'll give you like one more minute to make some modifications to the list. Cross it off. So now go through the list. Hopefully you had enough time to get a lot of things down, but if not, that's okay too. Circle the 5 most important things. Cross everything else off. And yes, you can use pencil, that's fine. You don't have to scribble it off. You're not allowed to have this. You can just lightly cross it off. It's like later. But circle the 5 most important things. And I'll give you another minute to do this. But just go with your gut on it. This is not like, we're not doing any kind of like major life coaching here. You can always go back to this later and spend more time with it if you need to.
It's a game.
It is a game, exactly. So now, okay, so write them down. I'll give you guys copies of this slideshow at some point, but I put a spot for writing it down. And here's the question. Here's the big question that we all have. How do you find what you want? And that illustration there is Arthur Rackham. And of course, there's the Arthur Rackham Tarot deck, and I think this is the Fool card in that. So pick one thing. So we got it down to 5, but we want to figure out how to know what we want. So of the top 5, circle the one thing that's the most important for you right now. And go ahead and write it down. And of course, the whole thing, it's a game. The whole thing is complicated. If we were doing some life coaching or something, which I don't do, you know, we might talk about, you know, is it a SMART goal? Or we might talk about, you know, is there things that have to be done first before achieving this? But we're not doing life coaching. We're not playing that game. We're playing the game of Kabbalah. and so it doesn't matter. You can write anything down, and again, if it's super abstract, or even if it's like I have a feeling but I don't get what it is, that's okay too. Write that down if that's your one thing that you know you're craving something and you can't figure out what it is. That's okay too. This one thing is your guiding light. It's a thing that you can steer by, that you can navigate by. And it's a thing that we're going to try to connect to during the course of today's game. So this is groovy. It's fine if you wrote something tangible. You know, there's no rules for this game. You know, if you want a new car, awesome. I did research, and that was the most popular car last year, apparently. And I thought it looked kind of cool. So this, I don't have a car, so I don't even know what cars look like. Like, that looks like a cool car. This is groovy. It's fine if you wrote something intangible. Love is a really good thing to have in your life. So that's a good one. This is groovy too. It's fine if you wrote something intangible and you don't really know what it is. If it's a, you know, cloudy sky with some light beaming through, I want that light, but I don't know what it is. That's cool. You're allowed to write that down as your goal. So what's the object of our game is to look to the light. That one thing you wrote down, your goal, your guiding principle. Let's picture it as a bright light in the distance. What if you want to get closer to that light? What would you do? Now, of course, this light is up above. It's coming down from the heavens. And so how do we get to it? Well, you could build a ladder. That seems like a reasonable approach. Of course, I'm not sure how to get my ladder to lean against the clouds. Oh, well, what we need is a tree, because you can lean a ladder against a tree and then you can climb. The tree of life. And so here is Robert Flood's illustration of the tree of life. This is from like the 17th century. One of the cool things about the tree is it has its roots up in the heavens, and its branches and leaves are down below. And so what we're doing is trying to connect with these roots that are up here. Where do these, the root is the source of something. The root is where something comes from. And so that's what we're trying to do, is connect with that. The tree of life helps us climb to our goal. The tree of life is repeated at different levels. There's practical levels for tangible things and higher levels for intangible things. We'll come back to what you want later. So that was the first part of the game. We'll come back to it. Robert Flood, who did this illustration and a couple others that I used in the presentation later on, this is a quote from him. In man, various faculties of knowledge, sensory perception, the imagination, reason, and deep insight correspond to the tiered arrangement of the macrocosm. The last rung is a direct comprehension of the divine word in meditation. The latter extends no further because God himself cannot be comprehended. And you might not be able to see it, but whoops. On the ladder itself, the first rung says sensus, sensus, which is to feel or to touch. It's sensory perception. Then it says, like, I can't read it myself, but it looks like it has imagine. I don't know what the Latin word for that would be, but of course imagination, ratio, rationality, reason, and then it looks like the words both for intellect and intelligence, maybe. I'm not sure the difference, but it looks like that's what the next two words are on the rungs of the ladder. And that's translated here as deep insight. And then the top rung is verbum, and that's the word. The divine word in meditation. The last rung is a direct comprehension of the divine word in meditation. And so this ladder is symbolic of this process for connecting with something that is beyond us. It starts with where we're at, with the world of sensory perception, and going through these levels of imagination and reason and deep insight, we arrive at this kind of meditative unity with the word of the divine. So this is basically a way to connect with God. Kabbalah connects us with our goals, our higher self, our spiritual nature, even with the divine. And that is the illustration that is from the cover of Deanne Fortune's Mystical Kabbalah. How can it connect with God? Because it starts with God. The light. The bright light in the distance, it's actually a veil that hides God. In fact, it's one of three veils, but the beginning starts before that. We're not quite there yet. And if you're saying, but wait, go back, I wanted that new car. Well, now we're all of a sudden talking about reason and the divine word, and you lost me already. It's like, okay, if you thought the bright light was a new car and not God, that's okay. Ezekiel probably thought he hit the lotto. But we're going to start with the car and peel back the veils and kind of see how we can navigate up and down this ladder. As below, everything, everyone, every place, every car is the infinite diversity of the world we live in. So above, it all comes from the perfect unity of the unmanifest. We'll call that God, but other names are cool too, like the limitless, because it encompasses everything and nothing limits it. And I love this bright sun here behind this tree. I just thought that was a brilliant photo. In the beginning, and this painting here is from J.M.W. Turner. In the beginning, God took up all of space and time. God wanted to create something, but there was no room because, see above, he, she, they took up all of space and time. The constriction. So God had to constrict themselves. They had to pull back their infiniteness to create an empty space so they could fill with whatever, to create an empty space that they could fill with whatever they wanted to make. So, and I tried to find this is the time lapse of the stars spinning around the magnetic North Pole. And there's a little empty spot in the center of that. The pole star itself has a little bit of a wobble, so it kind of is the smallest circle in here, and there's emptiness. That, to me, that emptiness there is an example of the way God constricted or contracted and pulled away to create that emptiness in the middle. It's kind of like a donut. God pulled back infinity, creating a space in the center. The hole in a donut is like the emptiness God made in order to have room to create. Or a bagel, an everything bagel, because God is everything. Clearly, this is kosher Kabbalah. I know you guys are laughing on the inside. So, the ray of light. God sent a ray of light into the emptiness, and then all hell broke loose, but we'll skip that for now. I cover it in the other class, in the long class. This ray of light emanated the worlds. Emanate means something comes from nothing, emptiness into cars, with a few steps in between. And the 4-letter name. This is the name of God. And as in all Hebrew is read from the right to the left. And so it starts here with Yud, and then the second letter, Hey, Vav, and Hey. It's called the tetragrammaton because tetra is 4 and grammaton basically means letter or letters. We spell it YHVH, although YHWH is often also used, but in Hermetic Kabbalah, which is what I study, we usually spell it YHVH. When we write it in English, we go from left to right, just like we normally do. When we write it in Hebrew, we go from right to left. That's the word in the Bible for Jehovah or Yahweh. We can also say the Lord. And the 4 worlds. The Tetragrammaton outlines the 4 worlds. These are 4 levels of existence. The worlds exist from the spiritual level, which is closest to the divine, down to the material level, which is where we are. And this is another one of Robert Flood's illustrations. And it's got the divine name in a vertical arrangement, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. And then to create the worlds, the top world is just the letter Yud. The second world is Yud, it's right here, Hey, Yah. The third world is 3 letters, Yud, Hey, Vav, Yeho. And the bottom world is Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, Yehovah. And so that's kind of a neat little trick where it's the Yud, then the Yud Hey Vav, Yud Hey Vav Hey. That's another way of arranging it. And those of you that are in the other class where we talk about numbers might recognize that as the tetractys. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yud Hey Vav, Yud Hey Vav Hey. So coming into being. The Tetragrammaton appears on the Tarot's Wheel of Fortune card. So here's the T-A-R-O. Here it is in between those letters. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. So Yud Hey Vav Hey is basically a form of the verb to be. Arrangements of the letters also form the past and future tenses, was, is, will be. On the macroscopic level, as above, it represents the eternal quality of God. He was, he is, he will be forever. On the microcosmic level, which is down where we're at, it suggests the idea of creation or of coming into being. Because we have, on this level, we have the absence of things. God was always there. God always was. So there was never an absence. But on this level, we cannot have something. It can come into being and then it can stay in being or eventually go away. And so on the microcosmic level, it suggests the idea of creation or coming into being. And that's what the Tarot's Wheel card essentially means. You know, on a exoteric level, it just means change. You know, things are going around. What comes around goes around or something. Things they go up, they go down. But on a more esoteric level, it is about the coming into being of something. So Kabbalah is God's process for creating the world. Kabbalah is also our process for reconnecting with God. Up and down the ladder or up and down the tree. And this is Jacob's vision of the ladder. And remember, and it has up here, it has the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. So that's the Lord or the divine name. And then the angels were going up and down the ladder in Jacob's dream. And that's, and I don't know enough about the Bible or about any of this stuff to know all the levels of meaning to that vision, but I think one of the important levels is the very fact that the angels went up and down. It's not a one-way street. Kabbalah is God's process for creating the world. Kabbalah is our process for reconnecting with God. So, the process of emanation. The first emanation, the ray. God sends a ray of light into the emptiness. So God took up all of time and space. There was the constriction where he opened up the donut hole. And then into that chaos, which resulted from the emptiness, God sent a ray of light into that emptiness. The second emanation is the worlds. The ray organizes the emptiness into the four worlds. And you can see them as these kind of big overlapping circles. The four worlds step the divine energy down from perfect unity at the top to infinite diversity at the bottom. And so this circle is closer to the top, it's more spiritual in nature. This circle closest to the bottom, it's more physical in nature. These four levels correspond to the four suits of the tarot. Third emanation, the Sephirot. The Sephirot mark the intersections of the circles. And so you'll notice, so there's the line, which is the ray, and then where the line and circles intersect, there's a circle. Where the two circles, first and second circle, intersect, there's a circle. And here's another intersection, circle. There's an important intersection here that doesn't get a circle. We mark a circle there anyway because it's obvious that something needs to go there, but we mark it with a dotted line, and call it, the circles are called Sephirot, and the singular for that is Sephira. And so we call that the one that's obviously missing, we call that a quasi-Sephira. And so I'm not going to teach about that one today because it's a rule that we'll layer on later, after we get the basic stuff out of the way. So all the other points of intersection all get a little circle. And so these little circles, which naturally arise from the way that four worlds interplay with each other or interact with each other, those are the 10 Sephirot. They mark the intersections of the circles. The 10 Sephirot represent states of consciousness, starting from spiritual essence up at the top, all the way down to the physical body at the bottom. These 10 Sephirot match the numbered tarot cards from ace through 10. Ace being the top, the spiritual essence closest to the divine, which is beyond everything, and then down through these other layers, arriving at the physical body here at number 10. The path of creation. This is the lightning flash path. It follows the 10 Sephirot. It's the process of enlightenment. It's the divine coming down from up to us. It's starting from the divine, which is beyond all of this, and then comes down like a bolt of lightning all the way down to here. It's a path of emanation or manifestation, and it's also called the flaming sword. And one of the premises or precepts of Kabbalah is that when the first Sephira is emanated, the final Sephira is emanated at the same time. And you just think of lightning. Lightning is like, isn't it just like a bunch of kind of static or something in the clouds? And when it finds a grounding point, that's when it comes together and there's the flash all at once. And so it doesn't start here and work its way down. It's instantaneous from here to here, boom, like that. That's how God works. It's the process of inspiration. It's a process of enlightenment. So the fourth emanation is the paths. The paths are the connections. So even if we go back to our circles, the next, just like I said, there's obvious intersections here. And then the next thing to do would be to like, well, look, I can draw lines between these circles. There are connections. I could put, lines here, line here. I could make a triangle out of that. Those are obvious connections. And that's what the paths are. They help us move from one state of consciousness to another, allowing us to climb the tree. The 22 paths correspond to the Tarot's major arcana. Now you will notice, without having to spend too long looking at this, that not all the paths are marked. There are connections that don't get a numbered path. There are different ways, due to this, there are different ways of arranging the tree. This arrangement seen here is the arrangement that we use in the Hermetic Kabbalah. There's other styles of Kabbalah that will arrange the paths differently on the tree, and they'll also arrange the letters on the paths differently. But this is the one that we use in Hermetic Kabbalah. It's the one that's used in the tarot. So the 22 paths form the path of redemption. And that works up from the bottom, from where the snake's tail is. It starts on this path right here, connecting these bottom two, and it comes through and it weaves its way over and under and over and under and back around, and just weaves over and under through all the paths. It doesn't hit the Sephirot, but it does touch every single path. And that's the way we work. We work our way up towards the divine. It's the path of connecting with the divine. And this is a path of study. And this is how we approach the process of reconnecting with God. So down and up the tree. This is God coming down to us. This is us slowly winding and working our way up to God. Oops. So the lightning flash is God descending down the spheres to us. Serpent path is us climbing up towards the divine via the paths. There's another kind of saying or thing that I've heard, which is that the very process of reaching up causes God to respond, causes God, when we reach up, God comes down. And so if we start this process of working these paths down through here, that can trigger this response from the divine. The esoteric fool. In Kabbalah, each of these developments or emanations, line to the worlds, to the Sephirot, to the paths, has to do with the divine and his desire to interact with the material world of his creation, and with how he steps his energy down into forms that no longer are him, but only, often inaccurately, reflect him, but that we can more easily understand and work with. And that slide is from 2008 when I said him for God, and now I usually try to say they, which was the earlier slide. So anyway, in tarot, each of these emanations represents or corresponds to a part of the tarot structure. So to recap that, the ray or the line, that's the organizing principle. It doesn't necessarily correspond to something, but I would guess it corresponds to the deck or possibly the shuffled deck. I would have to think about that. I did think about that, and I still didn't come to a conclusion. Lon Milo Duquette says something about that, and I would go with whatever Lon Milo Duquette says because he's kind of brilliant. But he addresses it, and I forget exactly what he says. But I think that ray or line must be the deck itself or the shuffling of the deck. The 4 worlds, of course, are the 4 tarot suits. The 10 Sephirot are the 10 numbered cards, ace through 10. The 22 paths are the major arcana. The 16 court cards also fit into the same paradigm. I'll have to explain it a little bit more, but they combine both the Yud-He Vav-He of the divine name along with how that fits onto the Sephirot. We already saw how the divine name fits into the four worlds with the vertical arrangement. It fits onto the Sephirot as well. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So let's go ahead, let's see it in action. I'm still giving you all the rules to play by. Kabbalah is a process, tarot is a tool. The Kabbalah defines a process of material manifestation, stepping down, or of connecting with the divine, climbing up. The tarot gives us a tool for working with that system. So the correspondences. The four worlds, Yud, He, Vav, He. The highest world is Yud, it's an element fire. That world is called absolute, and it means emanation, the world of emanation. It's the tarot suit of wands. We can call it the world of the spark, and it's the spiritual level. The next world down is the He and Yud He Vav He. It's the world of Bria, which means creation. It's the tarot cups. It's the world of dreaming, and it's the emotional level. So if you study Kabbalah via the Hermetic Kabbalah, particularly via tarot, that second world of Bria will of course be usually referenced as emotional because it's a tarot cups. In the actual philosophical writings of the time that this stuff was developed, which it was developed through a lot of through stages over definitely hundreds, 1,000 years or more, 1,500 years or more. This was developed. The initial stuff, the initial references to the Sefer Yetzirah date from like the 1st century of the Common Era, and so and their references to a lost text, and so who knows the date of that. And then it was kind of pieced back together, reformulated later on. So the second level, sometimes people do talk about it as more of an intellectual level or a thinking level. And so just kind of, this is part of the rules, is that there's different ways to play the game, just like gin and gin rummy and 500, and I still don't know which one I play. I just play one that's fun, and I always win, so I especially like it for that reason. But which one I'm playing, I'm not even sure. At least I know I'm working the Hermetic Kabbalah. So there's slight variations to the rules. In our version, the second world, Bria, is the world of dreaming. It's the emotional level. The third world, air, that's the Vav. It's called Yetzirah, which means formation. It's a suit of swords, the world of shaping. It's the mental level. Earth is He, Asiya, manifestation, the final He. It's the suit of pentacles, the world of completion, and it's a physical level. And I think I'll try to quickly tell you my little, just because I know this stuff gets abstract, and the stories are the best thing to explain it. And of course, the stories take more time to tell than just giving you a little graph like this, or something that just summarizes it quickly. But in the story that I tell about this is of making a pot. And one day I come home in my big fancy house that I own, because I learned how to do Kabbalah right, and so I can have a big fancy house. And I come in, and there's an entryway, because there's an entryway in my fancy house, and there's an entryway table. Well, I think, you know what would look nice is a pot. Now, I've come home a million times. I've put my keys down on the entryway table a million times. This is the first time I thought of that. You know, a pot would look good there. So that's the world of absolute. That's emanation, something from nothing. It's like, I never thought about a pot before. Suddenly I get this idea. I think I'd like to put a nice pot there. And so that's a spiritual level. So then, to me, Bria, the next level, creation, I call it the world of dreaming, or to me, it's imagining. all of those possibilities about what my pot could look like. I want it to be big, and I want it to be round, and I want it to be this color and have all this gold leaf on it and these kind of fancy designs that I'm going to etch into it. And so I imagine all the possibilities. It's like I could do it that way, or I could do it that way, or maybe I could try something different. You know, I imagine everything. Then air, Yetzirah formation, the suit of swords, is the world of shaping. And Yetzirah is the same root as the word Yotzer, and Yotzer means potter. So that's part of where I get this a story from, or this metaphor, is the idea of the potter. This is about forming it. So I go out to my pottery studio, which I have in the back of my fancy house, and I go to get some clay. Well, I only have a little bit of clay left. I don't have enough to make the big pot that I want. Now I could run to the store and get some more, but you know, the store is closed, and I could order it, but it'd take a few days to get here, and I don't want to do that. I want to get started right away. So I immediately start editing my dream. And when I edit, that's the suit of swords. That's that's the world of shaping. Is like, what's actually going to work given the particular limitations that I'm under. And so I start shaping the pot. I have to make it a little smaller. Instead of being a great big thing, it's going to be a little bit smaller. You know, I shape it, and I do the designs on it that I want to do. I don't have any gold leaf. I check the price. I'm like, oh my God, it's so much. I'm just going to skip it. I go ahead and I do have the glaze that I like though, so I'm going to do that color on it. And so, you know, I do all of the things to my pot. I have to make all those edits, but I still make it. And then I fire it, and then after it's all fired and done, then I have a pot. And that physical object, that's the world of Asiya, the bottom world, the world of manifestation, the physical level. It's the thing that is completed, the pot itself. So one of the things with the whole four worlds process is that the spark, which was the idea, and the final product have a degree of variance between them. Depending on how much clarity you have with your spark, depending on how much kind of understanding, I guess, you have with the imagination process. I know what my abilities are. I know how to imagine this in terms of what I do well, and how I can create this, and how I can make this happen. In terms of my ability to shape and create it properly and correctly, and following the right measurements, the world of Yetzirah is measuring and cutting. So following all of that, the better I can do each one of these steps, the more skill I have, the closer the final pot is to the original spark of idea. Almost always, I know for me, things don't very often turn out exactly how I imagine them. There's things that I do better than others. But I think there's a possibility or an argument that even the greatest artists ever can't quite get their vision down into the fullest expression of what they want. And so that's part of this whole process of Kabbalah, is that we start with perfection and unity, and as we go down, we lose at each level. The energy is too great to travel all the way down, so we lose at each level. And the final destination, the infinite diversity, is just doesn't have the ideal perfection that we had up at the highest level. So now going back to the want that we had, the world of your want, what world do you think that would fit into? Would it fit into the highest world of the spiritual level of let me pull it back to this here for you so that you can see this. So would it fit into that highest level, that spark of idea? It's like, I've got this great idea but I don't know where to go with it. Is that what your want was? It would go into the world of absolute, the world of emanation. Maybe the thing that you want, maybe it was relationship. Maybe it's something that's fulfilling at an emotional level. Relationships would count as the emotional level. Maybe it would go into the world of Bria. Maybe it's something that you have an idea, but there's so many possibilities for how to do it. You're really trying to think about it in terms of finding all those possibilities. That's another example, a more abstract one, of how that would fit into Bria creation. Yetzirah is going to be either the world of ideas or the world of editing. And earth is the physical level. So almost any physical item that you would want, we would put into the physical world. So I'm going to stop for a second, we have three things that are represented here: the car, the relationship, and this abstract want that we don't know quite what it is. I'm going to stop the share for a minute, and we're going to discuss those three things. Okay, so thinking about those four worlds, the car, first of all, and you guys can unmute yourselves if you'd like. Where would you put that in the four worlds? Which world would that go into?
Earth?
Yeah. Yeah. Asaya, the bottom one. Yeah. And that's where I would put it too. It's a physical object. I need it for practical purposes to, run errands or get to work or something like that. Maybe a fancy car might have some non-practical aspects to it, but yeah, for the most part, that's going to go there. How about the relationship? Where would we put that one?
Emotional.
Yeah, I would put it into the emotional level, the world of Bria. How about the cloudy sky with the light coming through? It's like, I know I want something, but I don't know what. Where would you put that one?
Probably the mental.
The mental. And do you want to talk a little bit about what your ideas are there? Your reasoning?
Because you want something and you don't know exactly how to shape it.
How to shape it.
And you don't know all of the possibilities and all of the endless, like, how it's going to look at the end, where it's going to be. And you still have a little bit of a deciding on what it's going to be shaped and look like.
Yeah, and I think that's a good one. I think it's also reasonable to maybe put that one, depending on how clear your feeling about it is. It might also go all the way up at the top with absolute, with the world of emanation. It's just like, I know there is something. It's very, I don't have any sense of it other than that it's important. That to me would be absolute. And then more like, I feel what it feels like. I feel like it's something I'm already doing. It just needs some fine tuning. I don't quite know what to fine tune or exactly what direction to go. Yeah, I would put that one down at Yetzirah. Any other thoughts? It could probably, in some ways, I wouldn't put it at Asiya for any reason, but you could probably make a good argument to put it at Bria too. It just has to do with kind of where you're feeling about it, right? Does anybody have for their want? Did everybody have a easy time fitting it into one of the four worlds, or does anybody have a question about that or need some help?
So mine is like motivation and like energy, which I would place in the physical. However, I don't know how to get it. So I think I'm a little stuck in the mental, or like overcoming the challenge of getting that motivation or getting that. So I don't know how to get it and get it like So that's mine, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, and I usually associate now, and this is one of the rules for Kabbalah, is that they're like I said, I was talking to Hal about it. So Hal's approach is going to be totally different from mine. He's like, it's like Calvin Ball, and I'm like, what? He's like, didn't you ever read Calvin and Hobbes? I'm like, yeah. He's like, don't you remember Calvin Ball? I'm like, no. Apparently there was Calvin Ball, where the Calvin and Hobbes would play a game that involved a soccer ball and croquet hoops and a badminton birdie and just like all the things they could scrounge up, and then they made up the rules as they went. and so Calvin would be like, oh, you just walked into the invisibility zone, and or Hobbes said that to Calvin, and Calvin's like, what? He's like, that's not fair. How am I supposed to know where the invisibility zone is? And then he's like, I don't know. He's like, well, you just walked into the vortex. And then Hobbes said, well, the vortex just happens to be in the boomerang zone, and it boomeranged back onto you. And so playing Kabbalah is like playing Calvin Ball. It's like we're the rules kind of get tweaked as we go along. And so this idea of motivation, to me, and each of us can have a really good, strong reason of where to place it and why. But to me, motivation is going to be fire. And so I'd go ahead and put it at the top and put it in the world of absolute. Because even when we are trying to have a physical response, we want the motivation to help us on the physical level, or for physical things to get work done, or to to get something started, whatever. I'm not, I can think of lots of reasons, but that is going to start up at that spark. The motivation is the spark that causes everything else to fall in line. So that's where I would actually put motivation, is up at the world of absolute. But I hear you if you want to put it somewhere else, and if I explain that and you're like, nope, doesn't work for me, go ahead, you know what you need, and put it where it makes the most sense to you.
That actually makes a lot of sense. The energy factor, motivation and energy, I kind of combine anyway. But however, the motivation can be there, and I have the motivation. It's the energy that is lacking. So that's actually a really good point. Like, where is that going to come from, that infinite store?
Well, and that's part of the whole process, is that all four of these worlds need to be in alignment. And so the trying to figure out what you want, and a lot of times the what you want part has to do with the spark, and then everything else, it's like, if you're not taking the action is the physical level. If you're not taking the action on working on something, there is a problem in one of the upper three levels, whether it's the spark, I guess I don't really know what I want, maybe I need to go back there, or I know what I want, but I'm not maybe your motivation is at the emotional level. I just don't care. I just don't care if I have it or not. Like, I have no emotional buy-in on this, no sense of that there would be a benefit to me, or I would feel good about this. Maybe that's it. Maybe that you'd feel great about it, but yeah, the blueprint level, some people call the Bria level blueprint. I tend to put blueprint down into Yetzirah because it's the measuring. Maybe the blueprint level is like, there's so many steps to this, I don't know which the first step is. So everything that we have, we want to map out into those four worlds.
Joy, could I just ask a quick question to clarify? I think I know the answer, but do you have to choose which What, do you have to choose one world?
Yes.
I mean, you can't be in all four.
No,
You're not going
everything
to get anywhere.
right. Everything everything processes through all four worlds, but you got to figure out where the problem is.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So now I've got the 10 Sephirot. So the tarot pips, or the numbered cards, correspond to the Sephirot. So it starts up here with number 1, Keter, the crown, that gets the aces. Number 2, Hokmah, wisdom, gets the 2s. The 3s, the 4s, the 5s, the 6s, the 7s, 8s, 9s, and the 10s. And that just goes in order. The wands, of course, are going to be wands or fire, which was the Yud in Yud He Vav He. That's the world of absolute or emanation. So the wands represent the whole world. This is the 10 steps of the Sephirot, all in the world of absolute. And this is one of the really brilliant things about how this works, is that because of the numbers and because of the suits, this actually outlines a 40-step process. You start with the highest world, absolute, and you get 1 through 10 in that world. And that's the wands. And then you go down to the second world, Bria, cups, water. And you get 1 through 10 in Bria. Then you get 1 through 10 in Yetzirah and 1 through 10 in Asiya. So you get all 4 of those stacked on top of each other for 40 mini steps, from total unity to infinite diversity. Total unity, perfect unity is Keter. It's the ace, Keter and absolute. It's the ace of wands, all the way down through 40 steps to arrive at long last at the 10 of coins, the 10 of pentacles, which is Malkut and Asiya. Here are the names of the numbered steps of the Sephirot, the Hebrew name along with the English translation. There's multiple translations for every one of these. Those are rules that will come into play later. Although I gave a little bit. Netzach is both victory and perseverance. Hod is splendor and yielding. I gave you a couple. Tiferet is beauty and harmony. I gave you a couple options to help bring some of this out. But these are the basic correspondences, and this is what I usually start people off with. It's got the Sephira, that translation of its title, the color, the astrological correspondence, the faculty, which is the state of consciousness, from the Yechida, which is a spiritual essence, up here, all the way down to the Guf, which I forgot to add what that means, but the Guf means the physical body. So the physical body is down here. But this should be enough to get you started. Building up these correspondences is one of the main, just like in, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. I think I would have really liked it, but I didn't even know about it. It seems to me that you have to build up worlds, and you build a character, and you add all kinds of elements and qualities and props and stuff to your character. That's what Kabbalah is kind of like. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. And so the whole game, this is like the basic thing that comes with the start of the game, but then you get to add to that, and there's long lists of correspondences that you can add, and then you have to buy each one separately. I could make like a Kabbalah empire out of this, with like cards that you like for gaming cards. That would be brilliant. Okay, no, never mind. So you're going to add to your list.
I would buy that.
It's the Dungeons and Dragons Kabbalah Tarot version.
Yeah, I have a whole library of Dungeons and Dragons books.
I know. I love Dungeons and Dragons. That sounds like so much fun.
Okay, Nicole, Natalie, you guys are with me. We're going to develop this. Okay. But this is enough to get you started. I have what I call the short list, which lists about 14 correspondences for each things. I can get you guys that one too, and you'll keep adding to your understanding of the Sephirot by adding stones, plants, incenses, God names, angelic names, cross-cultural deities. There's lots of different types of symbols and props, literally, that could be added to these. But this is just enough to kind of get you started. So again, we're going to look at the sphere for what you want. What sphere does your want fit into? And so here we have the car. And so going back to this, where do you think a car would fit? And I have a really good idea. There's a god that is a planet that represents transportation. And so what would that be?
Mercury.
Mercury. And so where's Mercury on the chart, on the tree?
Number 8,
In the
Hod.
Yeah, Hod. And so I would put that car as Mercury because it's transportation. You might have another reason for doing it, but that's what I would do and where I would put it. So how about our relationship? Where would we put that? Whoops.
Could be emotion and Netzach.
Yep. And Netzach is Venus. And so Venus governs love. So that's a really good choice. Any other ideas for where to put it?
Could it be in Tepereth for beauty?
Yes, Tiferet, beauty and harmony. And also in the body, it's the heart. So that's another really good place to put that. And then up here, Hesed, we learn the title as mercy. Why is the color above the title? See, how many times have I updated this and I still have these problems? Hesed, one of the other words for Hesed is love. But that's more of a spiritual love. It's loving kindness. But if you really want to update that to really high compassion level, and maybe that's what you need in your relationships, maybe that's where you'd put it. Probably for just like a regular one-on-one relationship with another person, particularly a romantic relationship, we'd probably go with Netzach or Tiferet for that. So now our cloudy, I know I want something, but I'm not sure what. Where would you put that?
I would say
Sword?
Hokmah.
I don't know what the name is. Would it be Swords?
Oh, right. And the swords are one of the worlds. The swords are the world of Yetzirah. And so for this, we would want to look at these. So the swords would just be Ace of Swords, 2, 3, 4 of Swords, 5 of Swords, 6 of Swords, 7 of Swords. So if you wanted to say swords, which sword card would you put it with, Tammy?
I don't know.
Well, I like that though, and I personally, based on that, I would probably choose the Ace of Swords because I need clarity, and clarity is a good keyword for the Ace. And it puts it down into the world of formation, which Natalie gave a really good argument for that being a good world for that one. And it still gives me that kind of, it still is abstract, it still goes towards the top. And so I do get the Ace, but in the world of formation. And I like that because a lot of times when we're cloudy, we need that sword, that point, that clarity, and that single focus to help us figure out what we want. So I like the Ace of Swords for that one. Nicole, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking if the gut idea is you just have an idea that's like there's something that wants to be or something like that, it would put it up in the supernals and probably together.
Yeah.
I would put it in Hokmah.
Okay.
Just because, and the reason why is it's not yet it's not yet like formed or had a complete idea, but it is the wisdom of what you want, but it hasn't really had the understanding yet or come into complete being, or
Yes.
had that. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I totally agree with that.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
would be like the number 2, where you're deciding which direction you want to take.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Good job, Tammy.
And I would kind of jump more on that and actually move it to Binya, because you already know you want some sort of purpose, so that would be the will, but it's the understanding of it. So I would kind of move it more. So I don't know. That's just me, because if I've already got the will that I want to know what my purpose is or what something is, it may not be. I mean, obviously, it's in that the spark is already there. So I would move it a little bit farther down and go, okay, what's the clarification of it? How does it? Because you're still in that upper world, but it's not so completely abstract as it would for 1 and 2. But it's, to me, I would think the clarity would start to, kind of start to roll in as you're going into the emotional level and the mental level and stuff. But that's just me.
Okay, cool.
Well,
Yeah.
everything that comes from the supernals comes through Bina
Yeah.
to us. So
Yeah.
so you're gonna sort of get a mix of all 3 of the supernals as we take it in on our level, in our
Yeah.
soul level.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things, and this is why, and I said, it's easy, like a car, that was easy to figure out where to put that. Even love, a little more intangible, we still had several options. But when we get to something that we don't even know what it is, a little bit of this process, a little bit of the game is sometimes you just have to feel it out. And sense your intangible thing that you know that you need, but you're not sure what it is different people are going to feel that out on different levels. And so yeah, it's definitely a personal response. I think a lot of us, though, are agreeing that it probably sits up there in the supernal somewhere. And I definitely appreciate all the arguments for all of them.
Joy, can I ask a question about the car being in Hode? I get with Mercury and transportation, but wouldn't it, if you physically have the car, isn't it going to be in Malkuth?
Yeah, you can think of the way I'm thinking of it is more that it's in the world of Asiya, which is the physical world in the world of completion. But within that world of Asiya, the lowest world, it moves. It's the Malkut, which is the physical solidity. That's going to be more like a statue or a house, something that it has less changeability, that's longer lasting. A car isn't even that long lasting ultimately, and so I would get, that's one of the reasons I like Hode for it. But again, this is Calvin Ball. You can put it anywhere you want it.
But so anything below the supernals could be in the physical world? Is that kind of true?
Yes and no, and that starts to get really complicated.
Okay,
I think
that's okay. I won't go there.
It's
just a Calvin Ball rule.
And kind of keep. Remember, there's 40 minor arcana tarot cards,
right,
from the Ace of Wands all the way down through the 10 of Coins. The 4 worlds, you've got the spiritual level, the emotional level, the mental level, the physical level. Those are the 4 worlds. And then within each world, you can have the Malkut of Absolute, which is the physical manifestation of the highest spiritual level. Well, we know that there is no physical manifestation there. We'd have to, again, this is where it gets complicated. But for now, you were just kind of intuiting it. You know, we're not going to go into all the details of that, but for now, we just have to intuit it. And then Malkut of Bria is a 10 of Cups. That's the most physical level of the emotional level. So that's why it gets confusing. You can't just say Malkut is the physical level, and you can't just say that Asiya is the physical level. Malkut in Asiya is the most physical, but there are all these gradations. So it's like, it's not even a rainbow, it's a rainbow of 40 colors.
That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah. So like the car would be the 8 of Pentacles, not the 8 of Wands.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and couldn't you look at it real quickly? Couldn't you look at it the other way too? That it's in the car's in Hode, but you don't have the car in your hands. You're trying to manifest that car. Like it's there on a physical level, and it has all the bells and whistles that you want, but you don't have the title, and you don't have the physical. You know, you're not sitting behind the wheel of it yet. It's what you want, and so it's almost there in your hand.
You don't have the new car smell in your nostrils yet.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's just my thought. Was it's like, because to me, it's like how I look at this is it's the levels of kind of where you are, and since it's a game, like the end is going to be at the end, that you have what you're wanting to manifest, or what you're wanting to, you know, kind of roll within that. But that's just me.
And you're right. The thing is that because it's a game, it's just like, this is the goal. We want to have the physical object in our hands, and so yeah, we would put it in. It's like setting an intention. You set your intention as if it's already accomplished. It's like that, and so we're gonna say we don't want to have a photo of the car on our mirror or on our vision board forever and ever and ever. We want to actually have it in our driveway of the house that we own. I know there's a story that a man did all this magical work. He visualized the car that he wanted in his driveway for years, visualized exactly the car that he wanted, put a lot of work into that. Then he sold the house, and then the next people that bought it had that car. And that car was in the driveway that he imagined it in after he was gone.
So he really never got out of the 8 of Wands energy.
Yeah, he didn't bring it all the way down. So let that be a lesson to you. Okay. So Kabbalistic interpretations of the tarot pips. To understand the minor arcana numbered cards used in Kabbalah, we need to interpret Sephira in world. And that's what we've just been talking about. This is pretty straightforward. It's the wands are the world of Asiya. So we take Keter, the crown, and wands is wands are the world of Absolute. So we take Keter, the crown, ace, and that is Ace of Wands is Keter in Absolute. 2 of Wands, Hokmah in Absolute. Then we go down to the cups, and it's Keter in Bria, Hokmah in Bria, and so on down the planes. So here's our example Hode. And this is actually when I very first taught this, this is when I taught it in my meetup group the very first time. And so this is from probably about 2007. And these are the notes. I took notes at the end of that meetup. So has my understanding of this material developed since then? Yes. But one thing that I've found is that the examples from the first time I studied it are usually really helpful for people that are just starting their study of this. And so I was going to update this for my new improved understanding, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to leave it. This is good. And it wasn't just my ideas. This was a mix of everybody in the group. This is back in the good old days. We were all sitting around at a coffee house just talking Kabbalah. It was awesome. I wish I could be with you all in that setting right now, but this is what we got. So example is Hod, which means splendor or yielding. It's the planet Mercury, and its faculty is the intellect. So the Eight of Wands, which the card title is the Lord of Swiftness, that's Hod in absolute. That's emanation or the spark. So it's Hod, it's Mercury or intellect in the world, in the highest world, the world of that spark. So the card shows those 8 flying staffs angled towards the ground as if they were coming in for a landing. It might represent the swiftness of Mercury and coming in for a landing in the world of manifestation. So it's angled towards probably world of manifestation is probably not the best one to use. I would maybe call that now coming towards Malkut, coming towards the final step of that particular journey. So they're coming in for a landing at, let's say, Malkut, and they're inspired by the spiritual fire of emanation, absolute. And another comparison would be Mercury bringing messages from the gods to the world of man. And so, so that idea of, we worked with the idea of Mercury for this one, as the 8, Mercury or intellect. This idea of sending those staffs coming in at the angle is Mercury sending messages down. Abandoned success, 8 of Cups. This is Hod, Mercury, the intellect, in the world of Bria, which is creation or dreaming. So this shows the figure walking away from 8 cups. Now, cups, we know, as a rule in tarot, represents emotion. Emotion, remember, Hod was here. Opposite of Hod is Netzach. Netzach is emotion. Hod is intellect. Netzach is emotion. And so the cups represent emotion. Maybe the figure is walking away from Netzach, away from the cups, away from emotion. Maybe he's walking away from the world of creation, which is the world that we're in, Hod in Bria. Maybe he's staying in the intellect. Maybe he's staying in that Hod, that 8, walking away from the emotion and staying in Hod as intellect. I'm going to stop for a second and ask how you guys are feeling this and if it's making any sense. Just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Absolutely. This is great. Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
cool.
Making a lot of
Good.
sense. Yeah. Mhm.
Awesome, awesome.
So I'm confused at the 8 of Wands being a spark.
Because it's there's the 2 things. There's the Sephirot and there's the world. So the worlds are the 4, that's the suits. And so fire, wands are all 10 of them are sparks in the world of the spark.
Okay.
Malkut is the most, number 10 is the most solid of the spark, but a solid spark is still pretty abstract.
Okay.
So it's the wands that are the spark, and Hod is the 8 is Hod, the wands is absolute. So yeah, coming down to the 8 of Swords, we have Hod, number 8, in the world of Yetzirah, swords, which is the world of formation, the shaping, the potter. And so the intellect in the world of forming, those go together actually pretty well, because the intellect likes to measure things and know exactly where the cut needs to be. Measure twice, cut once. That's a really good Hod thing. And so Hod in Yetzirah, those 2 things go together pretty well. What's curious is that we have the figure, the illustration doesn't necessarily match how well those 2 things go together. The title of the card is Foreshortened Force. And so it shows a bound figure surrounded by swords. So then we have to say, okay, well, maybe what are some other options here? Maybe they have too many ideas. They're supposed to be Hod and Yetzirah cutting away, and instead they've got a 1,000-page manuscript and they've got to knock it down to 350 pages within a week to submit to their publisher, and it's just like too much to do. It might be being stuck in the world of Yetzirah, not able to manifest all the way down into Asiya because they're not making the decisions, the intellect, or not being, and also swords, and not being able to cut away or eliminate, which is again part of Yetzirah and its formation, the editing and cutting. They're not able to cut away or eliminate something. Perhaps they're even an overactive intellect, not able to ground itself into practicality. Well, I was just talking about that with, there was a guy Hal found on YouTube. The guy he's English. I think he's English, but like one of those kind of working class accents that's so cool to listen to. And he had created, do you know, I think it's called a Furby. I didn't know what it was, but it's like some kind of stuffed toy thing that's got computer components inside, and it's supposed to talk or make sounds or something. But at any rate, whatever it was, he created like this Furby organ, and he got like 40 Furbies and had this organ keyboard, and he soldered them and like rewired everything and all the electronics and computer stuff, so that when you played a key on the organ, a Furby made a noise. And you could play a chord and all the Furbies are talking together. It's just like, it was insane. And like, one, clearly the guy is ADHD, because nobody has the time for this stuff. Clearly he lives in his mother's basement, because nobody else has the money for this stuff. and this guy has like a YouTube channel with, you know, like 2 million followers or some ridiculous thing.
My son loves that. I know,
You know
exactly
who I'm
who you're
talking
talking.
about?
Yes, I do.
And it's just like, and I said to Hal, I'm like, and the, you know, the guy can't be older than, I don't think he's in his 20s for sure. If he's older than 25, I'd be surprised. And I said to Hal, I'm like, do you think he had graduated from high school, gone to university, and had dropped out? I'm like, do you think this guy could hold a job in the real world if YouTube didn't exist? And Hal's like, no way. I'm like, I know. He couldn't. He's ADHD. He's super focused, but only on the things he wants to be focused on. It's like this guy's got 2 million whatever subscribers. He's probably making a shit ton of money, which I think is amazing, and that's why I love YouTube, and that's why I love the world we live in. Is that this lost soul who wants to create Furby organs instead of like go to a 9-to-5. He did it, and he's making money doing it. But that's an 8 of Swords. If he was in the regular world and YouTube didn't exist, he would be a total 8 of Swords person. Too many ideas, not able to focus down on the one to get it done. Not able to probably, he probably isn't good at time management. He wanted to make like 1,000, I don't know what it was, but it had knobs on it that got turned, and he put the names of his patrons. He wrote the names of his patrons on the knob. And it's just like, nobody in their right mind would do that. It takes too long. You don't promise your patrons something that's going to take forever to do, but he did it. I mean, it's total ADHD thing to do, and that's the way they are. But again, I wanted to go. I'm like, I don't even know who the guy is. I wanted to go and give him money because I'm like, I want my name on a knob. So I don't even know what it's for. I want it. But total 8 of Swords type of thing. There's so many ideas. Not very good at cutting down to which one needs to happen. Not very good at prioritizing. That's our are intellect in the world of formation, where you need to edit, but the editing process, whether or not you're good at it, we don't know, that's yet to be seen. Eight of Pentacles got the editing process down. Eight of Pentacles has gone all the way down to the world of Asiya, the world of manifestation, of completion. So Eight of Pentacles managed to get all this stuff done. He knows his process. And even this organ builder guy, he does come up with processes, but you could see he had a thing he hadn't he pointed it out in the video. It's the things with the knobs. He's like, oh, I forgot to put that. Forgot to put the thing in there. There's I don't know. It was a thing that had to go in, another thing. He forgot to do it. That's kind of a good example. He's not very good at the checklist. He's not very good at the assembly line. Eight of Pentacles has gotten all the way down into completion. They're good at assembly line. They know how to hammer it out every time exactly the same. And so Eight of Pentacles is hoed all the way down into the world of Asiya, Pentacles. And it shows that man methodically and studiously repeating the steps of etching the pentacles. It's manifestation, but you know what he's lacking now? He doesn't have that spiritual connection anymore. The Eight of Wands was higher up. It's in the world of the spark. It still has the spiritual fire. The Eight of Pentacles doesn't have the spiritual fire.
It's just a factory.
It's just a factory. So here we have 8 in the world of Asiya, hoed in Asiya. Here's the assembly line, the factory. Over here we have 3 Bina in the world of Pentacles, in the world of Asiya, Pentacles, Asiya, Earth. On the tree, there's something called the Abyss, which is an imaginary line right here, separating the 3 supernal, the 3 upper Sephirot from the 7 lower Sephirot. There's another imaginary line called the Veil, and it comes here below Tiferet, above Netzach and Hod. So you can see that this is still higher up in the spiritual level. This is stepping down. These are the triangles. This is the supernal triangle, the ethical triangle, the astral triangle, and Malkut. Supernal, ethical, astral, and the world. These 2 cards seem to confuse a lot of tarot readers, because tarot readers that are trying to add their Kabbalah in, but they think that 10 is where it's at. You want to be at 10 because you want to have things completed. And so they said, this guy's further along. He knows what he's doing. He's further along than 3. 3 is towards the top, 10 is towards the bottom. But remember, it's not a one-way street. The angels go up and down the ladder. Up is closer to God. Down is closer to completion and the physical object. And so when we're in the world of Asiya, which is already the lowest world, when you're at 3, at least you're still in the supernals. There's still a connection to the divine. This card represents pure artistry. It's the person that has that connection to their art, to the divine, and are able to bring that divine connection all the way down into the beauty and the mastery of art. This person has lost their connection. They're too far down. They're a great manifester. They make those coins every single time exactly right. They don't mess it up, but they've lost their divine spark. And so they're really good at, this is somebody that creates artwork for a church. This is somebody's going to take those to the local craft fair and try to sell them. It's like, he's good. It's not that he's not good. He's got good technique, but he doesn't have the art. This guy still is inspired and has the art because he's higher up. And those three triangles tell us that because they match Keter, Hokmah, and Bina. Keter, Hokmah, Bina. And so, so many people get confused here. They say that these people, because they have the blueprints that they're telling him what to do, it's like, sure, if you don't want to take Kabbalah into consideration, that's a perfectly legitimate way of interpreting the card. But the truth of the matter is that he's given them the blueprint. He has the idea. He can imagine all its possibilities. He can create the blueprint. He can make it happen. He's got all four worlds going for him. This is the master craftsman. This guy,
Apprentice.
he's an apprentice. Yeah, exactly.
So Joy, isn't the guy telling the guys that are holding the blueprint what he needs to complete the job?
Yeah, that's a better interpretation. I just come across a lot of things where people say that they're telling him what to do, but he's telling them what to do. That makes a lot more sense.
Okay. Okay.
He's almost telling them what can be done. He's on the engineering level, real, I don't know, much more skilled.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, more of the architect that is also an artist, not just the guy that builds ugly dorms for college campuses, but the guy that wants to really create, beautiful, lasting, functional.
And he's creating something beautiful, and it might only exist there in that church at that pole. It's not good. And then if he went to another one, he'd take the whole process again.
Yeah.
And say, okay, what's right for this one?
Yeah.
And
yeah, he's not going to sell the same plans to the next person. Yeah. This guy totally would. He's like, we got 10 churches planned. Or 8 churches planned. They're all going to look exactly alike. In fact, I'm going to assemble them over here and then move them to your place and drop them in with a crane.
Joy, I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed that number 8 lost his spark. Like, couldn't you be an 8 and still have a spark? It seems like you're further down the path. Like, don't you want to go? Isn't the goal to still be connected to source, but be a 10?
Yeah, I think Mary Beth, it's complicated because and this is what we were talking about when I mentioned that the divine loses energy as it descends.
Yeah.
And the further down we go, the more concrete something gets. It just can't hold the energy anymore.
So
I understand, but it feels like a hard lesson.
It is, I know.
It's like a hard life lesson.
Isn't it because you're more in the material world? Isn't he more in the material world now?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess if you wanted to stay spiritual but live in the material, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too linear, that it's further along the path. But
well, I was going to say, keep in mind, even if you're going along the path and you do, you 8, 9, 10, well, once you get to the 10, I mean, whatever you've learned is going to create a new spark to start over again at an ace, but something else and something new. So you can't just stay in an 8 in a spark in the same thing forever. I mean, that's just boring. But like when you get to the 10, you finished that world or cycle or thought or project, and then it'll spark an idea for a new one, right? Is how I would say it.
That's a good, Reese, that's a good way of looking at it.
So even if this 8 guy lost his spark, but he's worked so hard and he's learned all these lessons, he's going to get a new spark for something else.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well,
he
Also, I kind of view him as, you know, he's working really hard on the thing that he's trying to achieve right now, which leaves little, but it did come from the divine. And right now he has to be focused on that. But after you go to 9 and 10, there is a little bit more resolve there to manifest what he wanted to create from the spark of the divine anyway. It loses that place so much that he has to focus in the material world to manifest it in the material sense. However, it's not that he'll never get to the 3 of coins again or to the abyss, and it didn't, and it came ultimately from the abyss. It just right now, that creation has to have its energy or its focus or its creation in the material world to manifest the ultimate goal from the divine.
well, and it's the up and down, up and down. So yeah, this guy here on the 3, he had to do this. He's already been here. And so, you know, you get down to Malkut as in the descent of the learning process, and then you start to climb back up. And so yeah, it's not quite like a one-way trip and there's no return. It's always up and down and up and down. And I'm going to go down to here and master this one, then I'm going to bring that knowledge and I'm going to use it to help me climb up to a higher level again. And so all of them, all of everything, you guys all made really good points, and all of you have really good understanding of this. And I don't think, I mean, think of the 10 of Pentacles, which is the old man in the house and the courtyard and the couple and the child and the dogs and the fancy building. And you know, it's like that's something that you want it to be in Malkut because you want it to last. It's the full rung all the way down to, from the very, very top all the way down all 40 steps to the very bottom. And it's like this is the vision that he built. He wants us to last. He wants to hand this off to the next person, the next person, and the next person. And so it's fully manifested in the world. It doesn't mean that that he's stuck there. It you know, that is his home base now that he can use to climb back up for like Reese said, for another spark. You know, so now that I built this, what do I build next? You know, where do I go from here? Or maybe he just wants to rest there, which is also totally fine.
I guess it highlights the up and down is a good thing to remember.
Yeah.
The up and down. Yeah. It's not just like you said before, it's not a one way, and it's sort of linear, but it's not totally linear, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's linear, but
It's winding.
it's stairs and not an escalator. You can stop and go back up if you drop something. So we only have just a few minutes left. So I want to kind of hit man, we didn't even get to the paths. I used to give this lecture in like 45 minutes because I was like, here's the rules, don't interrupt. I'm getting it done. You will not learn anything, just memorize what I say. So now we don't have time to look at the paths. I'm sorry about that, but we're going to go on to the practical application, and I'm going to just give you, because we have 3 minutes left, I'm going to just give you a really quick overview, and the handout, like I said, for the spread is in the comments, linked in the comments on the event page for this event in the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup. And this is from Did I? Oh, and there's my class. I should mention that. And there's the reading list. Is there anything else? No. Okay. So the class that we're doing, and a number of you guys are in it already, but it's Numbers and Tarot. We're on class 9 out of 14, but all of the class materials are there. There's video recordings with slideshows. There's handouts, lots of links, tarot spreads, guided meditations, all that kind of stuff. The early bird price of $100, this is like a $350 class. The early bird price of $100 is going to continue through like 10 more days, through June 24th. And then there's unlimited access once you get in. If you want to join it now, you could still listen to some of the classes live. But like I said, all the materials are there to listen to the recordings. And we go into obviously a lot more depth because it's a 14-week class on numbers and on Kabbalah.
And it's an amazing class. Absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. So wonderful.
Oh,
Get in on
you.
the early bird. There's lots of exercises.
There's a lot. Believe me, you get like 2 classes gives you $100 worth of content. And
I think one class gives you 100. I think one class.
Yeah, one class for sure.
Is the class over like Zoom or Facebook or?
Yeah,
YouTube?
I'm doing it on Zoom, and then recording it, and then the recordings go up on Thinkific. So the practical application, John Michael Greer says that we can learn to balance ourselves by identifying triangles, that one sephira connects with 2 other sephirot is a triangle. So here we have Hod, Yesod, and Malkut are connected by paths, and so they make a triangle. So we look at what is a thing that where you are finding you have an imbalance. And by looking at the other 2 sephirot around it and the paths that connect, we can start to put together our method of healing that imbalance. I'm calling that imbalance for the practical purposes of the game. I'm calling that your want. So if your want is a car at Hod, maybe you don't have it yet because of Malkut. You don't have the money. You can't bring it into existence because you don't have the physical resources for what you need. Maybe you don't have the car because of Gevura. Maybe you're scared of cars. You think they're dangerous, or you had a bad experience in a car, and you have to like balance your ability to deal with the power of the car. In that case, you would take your car at Hod and you would add it. You would use Gevura, and then the other 2 triangles. So you find your 2 things that are contrasted. Is it Hod and the money, Malkut? Is it Hod and the power, the danger, in which you would go that way? And then you find the 3rd one that balances those 2. And so it'd be either Yesod here, or back behind the sun card here is Tiferet. Tiferet would balance Gevura and Hod. And it could be Netzach, maybe you have a car, but it's a boring car and you're going through a midlife crisis and you want to look sexy. Netzach, you want to have more emotion, a more emotional response to your car. And so you need to connect with your sexy and get a sexy sports car. And then that might come down to Yesod, which is the genitals. Just saying. Or it might go up to Tiferet here, which is a higher self. It can go, there's lots of possibilities. So it's your job to find your want on the tree, which we already did, then figure out what balances that want. Is it I don't have my car because of danger. I don't have a car, but I want to look sexy. I don't have a car and because of the money. You find the balance and then draw the triangle. And then the 3 paths that connect it are look them up on the chart, and you're going to pull those 3 major arcana cards. And so so you'll put that little those triangles together, and then there's actually two different ways to do the spread. I don't have time to go into it, sadly, but there are instructions that come with it. There's the course, please come and join us if you're into that kind of thing, and there's the reading list. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was kindergarten.
A new game.
This was awesome, Joy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great class.
It was fantastic. Thank you so much, Joy.
So did
I hope you put the recording up because I literally could watch this like 5 times. Really?
Me too.
I'm
Ditto.
okay, cool. Yeah, I will definitely I'll definitely put it together and put it up for you guys. So yeah. Cool. Yay. Thank you guys for doing this and for joining me.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Joy.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Joy.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.